spirit telling me all this evil stuff. I'm going, that's your brain. That's not spirit. Raise your vibrational level. Spirit only communicates on the high vibration channel because they don't have the density of a body. Jesus sitting on the couch next to you, are you having a conversation with Jesus? Well, yeah, I kind of feel like I am. And I'll say, oh, you're talking to a spirit. And you can see their wheels in their head start to turn and they go, I never thought of it that way. It's attention intention. You know, what we focus our intention is what we feel.
Because all religions have some good in it.
But that's how people are controlled, is with fear.
I'd like to welcome back to the show returning champion, Julie Ryan. How you doing, Julie?
Oh, fabulous. It's always a treat to be with you.
Oh, thank you so much, Julie. I appreciate it. Thank you for making it down to Next Level Soul Studios.
Oh, my goodness. I'm so proud of you.
Oh,
it's just, so beyond my wildest expectations, and they were high because you've been telling me about it for a while as you've been building it. But to see it in person is just over the top.
I appreciate that.
I'm like a proud big sister.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you so much. It's been a labor of love, and it's been doing a lot of good work here. So we're getting a lot of episodes shot here. I'm learning. I'm feeling this is more where I want to go in person. It's just a different energy.
Yeah,
completely different energy. So you've been on the show a couple times before, and I wanted to have you back because there's, I wanted to kind of do a deep dive with you on a bunch of the stuff that you do. You are an intuitive medium. And tell everybody a little bit about what you do and your Reader's Digest version of how you got there.
I am an inventor of surgical devices sold throughout the world and former manufacturer of them. I am also a serial entrepreneur. I have founded 9 companies in 5 industries in the last 30 years. And so I'm a businesswoman who learned how to do woo-woo, and I'm a buffet of psychicness. That's my elevator speech.
That's a pretty buffet of psychicness.
Yeah, and that's trademarked, by the way.
It is, I'm sure.
Yeah.
It is, as it should be.
That's right.
As it should be. So, I want to first dive deep into humanity's consciousness right now, where we're all going as far as our consciousness is concerned, what's happening in the energy of the planet, the energy of humanity in general, because there is a lot of
turbulence.
Turbulence. Thank you. That's a better word. Volatile. But turbulence. A lot of turbulence going on right now in the world, energetically and just in general with there's a lot of negative things in the press and in the news and things happening around the world. So I wanted to get people a little bit of understanding of what's happening from your perspective, from the other side's perspective. What we're going through, why we're going through it, and the hope of, it's gonna be fine. It's this is not the end days or anything like that. This is not the world is not coming to an end. The fire and brimstone's not coming down. None of that stuff happening. But I wanted to get it from the other side's perspective and your perspective. So, please.
Well, if you think about when you want to do something new, you've got to shatter the old in order for something new to come in. When I was in my 20s, I had a friend who was 25 years older, and I was dating, and she'd say to me, that guy's Kool-Aid. I said, what the heck does that mean? She'd say, your bucket is full of Kool-Aid. Kool-Aid's good. It tastes good. It smells good. It looks good. It's great. But how can your bucket get filled with champagne when it's full of Kool-Aid? You got to empty the Kool-Aid first. So that's kind of what's going on is we're shattering the old. Not all at once. I mean, we're not gonna. The Earth is not gonna explode in any of our lifetimes or any of our descendants' lifetimes. But I think we're moving out of things we're creating. We all come in to create, so we're here to create the new. And what feels like the world going to, wherever in a handbasket is people understanding or people feeling that the old is dying off, it's shattering. And for new ideas, in most instances, we're seeing the ideas start to come into the basic zeitgeist of the conversation because the older people with their beliefs are dying off. And so the newer people are coming in. We see that with people turning away from organized religions and being way more involved in spirituality. And that's because the older people with those values, and they were taught that, they're dying. And the newer people are saying, yeah, that doesn't make sense in some instances.
Do you see in 2 or 3 generations that the organized religion as we know it today, especially these larger institutions, will be kind of almost a thing of the past and just maybe be a shadow of what it once was? Because they do have a tremendous amount of power, a lot of money and influence still, but the writing's on the wall. We all see it.
It won't be what it is today. It will look totally different. Again, back to those people that are dying off, they would do what a religion would tell them to do. Whereas my parents dealt with that. Whereas my generation, and I'm a little bit older than you, that's why I always say I'm your big sister, is I call myself a cafeteria Catholic. I take what makes sense to me. I leave the other stuff. And even as a kid, I'd be sitting in church and I'd say, well, that's just nonsense. Whereas my parents and my grandparents and my great-grandparents would say, oh, well, that's just,
it's in the book.
That's what the priest is saying, so that's true. And I think my generation, and obviously the generation older than I, who started the women's lib movement, the Gloria Steinems, the Bella Abzugs, the Jane Fondas, those women who are 15, 20 years older than I, they were starting to say, okay, there's more to the equation here. Right. And I see that my son, who's in his early 30s, and kids that are younger than him, they just don't buy into it because their parents haven't bought into it. Now, having said all that, my main frame of reference is Catholic because I went through 12 years of Catholic schools, and I know you did too. They do a great job of teaching little children about angels and spirits and saints and the Holy Spirit and stuff like that. So I feel like they give us a great foundation to expand our spirituality. Furthermore, when I'm at Mass, and I try and go when I'm in foreign countries as well, I see stuff energetically happening that's amazing.
Like what?
Well, there's a shrine. I live in Birmingham, Alabama, and there's a shrine about an hour north of me in Hanceville, Alabama, called the Shrine of the Most Blessed Sacrament. And they do this healing service in the undercroft of the basilica there. And there are tongues of fire during the service on everybody in the congregation, like Pentecost. I mean, I can see it telepathically. And they bless everybody. They have a communion rail. So everybody goes up to the communion rail, and if you can kneel, you can. Some people are in wheelchairs or they're on crutches and they can't kneel. And so the priest blesses them with, there's this thing called the monstrance, which is this big gold cross or oval or whatever, and they put the communion in that, and they bless everybody as they go down the altar rail. Alex, I'm telling you, everybody, as soon as they're blessed, they light up all the way down the altar railing like somebody's turning on a light switch.
So what is that then? Is it just the energy of the space?
It's the energy of what Catholics believe is Jesus in that host. So there's definitely some mojo happening in there that I don't see other places. Furthermore, I was in Turks and Caicos, and I went to a Mass that was Creole there. It was in the Creole language. And before the reading of the gospel, the Bible readings, there was this multicolored arc that went up over the whole congregation. And then at the end of Mass, it went down. It was like folded up, and then it went down. And it was vibrating different colors. At the end of every Mass, when the priest does the final blessing, there's an arc of light that goes out and it encompasses the whole congregation. So there's definitely spirit energy happening there, I think, in the traditions and in the ritual and stuff like that. Furthermore, I can be in a Southern Baptist church in Alabama where they're singing and there are sparkles flying all over the whole church. And I consider that to be grace. And so there's definitely something to the ritual getting people together as a congregation with common beliefs and things like that. And it's my hope that that will be retained in whatever form it ends up evolving into.
But it sounds like, because all religions have some good in it. I mean,
Oh, absolutely.
There's absolutely good messaging, good stories, good teachings.
Yeah.
In every religion,
Right.
every great religion in the world, hopefully
Right.
that there is something in there. But there's also, depending on which religion you're talking about, a lot of fear-based religions,
Which is nonsense.
Where I'm a recovering Catholic, as you are as well, or a cafeteria Catholic. Love
yeah.
the cafeteria Catholic idea.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of fear, especially Old Testament God is not one to play with.
And they're dying off, the ones that are in fear.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that's what I always like to tell people. I'm like, religion is not evil, it's not bad. It's done damage, but it's also done a lot of good for humanity throughout history and even currently to this day.
Yeah.
But the fear-based aspect of it, I think, is what's going to start to melt away, and hopefully just the good stuff starts to rise to the top, where, as you're saying, if you're in a congregation and you're together and you're praying, and it's, let's say, for Jesus or Muhammad or Abraham or whoever it is, there's still something there. There's still energy there. There's still good juju there when you're going through it. It's just the fear-based stuff that, turned me off. So I mean, even when I was a kid, it was just like, this makes no sense.
Right.
Like, it makes there's this Jesus character, and then this other guy telling Abraham to kill his son, and I'm like, what? This, he seems just very insecure. God, he's angry. He's got anger issues. He's wrath. He's very egocentric. You must only me. I can be the only one that you. These kind of things. It just didn't make. And then you got Jesus, like, hey, turn the other cheek. Hey, it's gonna be fine.
Right.
That kind of. It just didn't mix.
But I think you see that in all civilizations.
Yeah.
In the government, you see it in religions, you see it. Heck, we saw it with COVID. People were doing stupid stuff during
right.
COVID that made no sense. How many people did we see driving around in a car with a mask on by themselves?
Well, there's that.
And I'm thinking, what are you doing? And my favorite is when you had to wear your mask when you went to a restaurant and they sat you at a table 3 feet from the front door, but it was okay to take your mask off once you were seated 3 feet away from where that was.
There was a lot of misinformation during that time.
Craziness.
A lot of people were scared.
But that's how people are controlled, is with fear.
Oh, yeah.
Whether it's religion or
medical,
government,
education,
or whatever,
money,
or whatever.
Yeah,
May I share a story about when my dad was dying?
Please.
My dad went to the seminary at the Vatican on the GI Bill after World War II.
Jeez, that's amazing.
And obviously he wasn't ordained because I wouldn't be here. I used to, when people would say, well, why did you leave? If I was there, I'd say, I appeared to him in a dream. And I said, Dad, what are you thinking? He said he didn't remember it quite like that. When he was dying, he was in a coma, and I could communicate with him telepathically. And he was in ICU, and I'd say, Dad, what do you need? Are you ready to go? What can I do for you? And the rest of the family was there. And he'd say, I'm just so afraid I'm going to burn in purgatory or hell. Now, he drank the serious Kool-Aid at the Vatican, right, in the seminary. So I'd say, Dad, hell doesn't exist. Everybody goes to heaven. And he'd say, how do you know? I'd say, I've never seen angels drop somebody into a fiery pit when they're escorting them to heaven. And I've helped thousands and thousands and thousands of people transition. So one of my girlfriends is a psychologist, and she said, well, are there any clergy spirits in the room with him? Mm-hmm. And I said, yeah, lots. He had lots of friends who were priests. She said, can you have one of them intervene? Because he doesn't see you as an authority on the church. I said, well, yeah, that would be appropriate. I'm not. So anyways, this priest who married me and baptized my son and all that family friend was there. He had passed about 6 months earlier. His name was Father Hanley. And I said, my dad's afraid to die. He's afraid he's going to go to hell or purgatory. Can you help? And he laughed. He was hilarious. And he laughed. And he goes, yeah. Next thing I know, Alex, his ICU pod, he was in it by himself, was full of these dead popes. They all had their hats on. I mean, full.
Sure.
And then Father Hanley and this one pope went up to my dad's right shoulder And we're standing next to him, and I said to Hanley, well, who's that? And he said, Pius XII. I said, well, of course it is, because he was in office when my dad was in Rome for those 6 years. So I hear Pius XII, and I'm watching all this, like I'm watching a scene from a movie. He said, Tom, we're all waiting for you. When you're ready, come on. You know, there is no hell. Just come on.
We got it wrong, sorry.
When you're ready. Now, my dad died 2 hours later.
Because
He needed an authority on the church, which is what's more of an authority on the church than a room full of dead popes, to say, okay, Tom, we're waiting for you.
So you know what's funny is because when we're here, our programming is so instilled in us that even when you cross over to the other side, there is a transition period.
No.
Let me ask from what I've heard.
Okay.
I want to hear your thoughts.
Okay.
That sometimes when near-death experiencers, when they go to the other side, their programming is still with them, and it takes them a minute to kind of just like, where's hell, or where's this, or where's that, and they kind of work their way into, and they're like, it's almost kind of like you're dazed, almost punch drunk, and then you start to, okay, there's a life review. Okay, I kind of remember what I did. And then depending on how far that near-death experience soul is supposed to go will determine. A lot of them stay in their programming the entire time before they come back. Now, that's from what I understand from all the people I've spoken to. What's your experience with it?
That's different from when somebody really dies and stays up there.
Yeah.
That's more of a near-death experience, which is different from when somebody actually transitions.
It's done. Yeah,
it's done.
But he wouldn't go unless he had the authority of the popes to let him go.
My friend Angela, the psychologist, said, well, he just, needs that assurance
right.
that he's going to go, because he was so inundated with the
fear. Yeah.
The fear being in the seminary, for heaven's sake.
In the Vatican.
He had a master's in philosophy and theology from the Gregorian University, where Pope St. Thomas Aquinas went. I mean, these saints.
He was hardcore.
Oh, classic Latin. All the classes were taught in Latin.
Well, I mean, so I know that from my experience, you know more than I do this, but just from my own personal experience, when my grandfather was dying, I walked in, I said my last words to him, gave him a kiss, and then he literally waited until everyone left the room, and then he died.
Right.
So it's a lot of times that the human or the souls that are staying behind have to give them permission. It's okay. You can go. Like they get worried about something. Like I've heard stories of like, oh God, I forgot to send that check out. Literally, and he would not die until I think it was a meeting.
I told you
Is that story?
Yeah.
Yes, I remember that story.
That was my friend Angela, the psychologist. That was her dad.
Tell her that story real quick.
Oh my God, that's a great story.
Yeah.
He was in ICU for a week, couple of weeks.
Yeah.
They took him off the ventilator. Her mom had already passed, and he just wouldn't go. Angela's calling me going, what the heck? What does he need? Because I always ask when somebody's dying, are you ready to go? What do you need? Are you in pain? Those are the 3 questions I always ask. He kept saying, I need you to file my quarterly estimated taxes. And she said, Dad, seriously? So he was saying that for about a week. So one day she called me. She was just exasperated. She's like, I'm exhausted. The family's exhausted. It's time. He needs to go. And there are a lot of families that can relate to that because it's exhausting.
Oh my God.
At the end.
Yeah.
And so I'm in Alabama. She's in Ohio. I'm on the phone with her, with Angela, and he's, I'm talking to him telepathically. So we're having this conference call. Dr. Kirk, what do you need? I need her to file my quarterly estimated taxes. I said, Angela, go to his house, see if you can find him, put him in the mailbox. I mean, what do you have to lose? She said, I don't even know where they are. It's like, Dr. Kirk, where are your taxes? They're in my bedroom in the desk in the middle drawer on the left. I said, Angela, go to his house, see if you can find him. She goes, they're in the drawer, the middle drawer on the left. They're filled out, they're signed, the check's written. She calls me, she goes, they're exactly where he said they would be. I said, well, of course they are. And so I said, just put him in a mailbox on your way back to the hospital. She does. He dies a couple hours later. Come to find out, she was executor of his estate.
Okay.
By that postmark being the day that he died, it saved her so many headaches down the road when she was trying to settle his estate. He was waiting for her to file his taxes to help her in unraveling, all this stuff. And he had trusts and a will and all that jazz. But that is such a great story.
That's amazing.
I know.
But so people do hold on.
Oh, yeah. We're all in control of when we go, where we go, who's with us or not when we go, the circumstances that surround our passing.
So I wanted to ask you, because this is something I have a really strong feeling about, and I think that this is going to be where we're all going to go, is that I believe in the next 5 to 10 years, a lot of the things that we're talking about, humanity's consciousness, there's going to be something that really kind of even hockey sticks the awakening.
I agree.
Of everybody. Everyone's just going to wake up and go, no. Well, it's not like it. Before it was really third dimensional problems. So you're like, first world problems, like third dimensional problems.
Right.
Whereas like, I need how am I going to make a living? How am I going to find my true love? How am I going to get my that promotion? How can I get my career off the ground? How can I get in better shape? I want to look like that. That was the problems, where I think people are going to wake up and go, why am I here? Who am I? Do I have a soul? What is the bigger picture of this entire thing called life? These are very deep philosophical questions that everybody is going to start to begin to ask themselves, and it's going to elevate everybody. And that's the moment where people will start hunting and searching for information, where they'll run across this conversation.
I agree.
And we'll run across like the work that we're doing and so many other good people are doing in this space, who are trying to raise people's awareness, because the mainstream is decades behind, and they would never be able to provide this information, even if they started trying to today. Mm-hmm. The studios couldn't do it. The networks couldn't do it on a media standpoint. And religion, even longer curve.
They'd
for
have
them.
to give up control.
Right, and that's something that they don't want to give. And actually, all of these systems will have to give up control.
Right.
But the point is that they're not going to have a choice. Either they get on board or they're going to turn into Blockbuster. Netflix is coming.
Good analogy. Yeah.
Netflix is here. It's coming. People are going to go, you know what? I don't want to rent a VHS anymore. There's this thing called streaming. It's a whole lot better.
Right.
Same analogy. We're going to be like, no, I don't want violence all the time. I don't want negative fear-based news all the time. I want things that are going to be more uplifting, more nurturing to the soul. I see that, but it's going to happen, and it's going to happen fairly quickly within a 5-year period, 10-year period, where you're going to see people just in droves, where a show like this becomes I'm not saying my show specifically, but a show that's speaking of these kind of topics becomes a worldwide phenomenon or a worldwide hit, because that's what people are looking for. Imagine Oprah, but multiply it by 10,000, 100,000 kind of thing. Does any of this make sense, or am I just a rambling fool?
No. It all makes sense. And I've been seeing it unfold over the last, I would say, I've been in this woo-woo space for 30 years. And when I remember I learned how to do all this stuff. I didn't have dead people chasing me as a kid. Mm-hmm. I mean, I was like, what would I have done with that if that would have happened? So I learned how to do this. And people at the time were saying, what are you going to do? I was a businesswoman. What are you going to do with that? I don't know. How are you? Why are you learning this? I don't know. I'm just being led to learn it. So I see that there's a confluence of a lot of different niches, if you will, that are all coming together. And I think that's what you're feeling, Alex, is that when when you have a confluence of two rivers and then they turn into the Mississippi River or another big, huge river, it has more force, more power. I'm seeing it in medical. I'm seeing that the mind, body, spirit stuff is being way more accepted into the medical niche. I've been involved in medical stuff my whole career. I see it in the psychology stuff. I see it in the day-to-day stuff. Why am I here? Why am I doing this job that I don't like just for a paycheck? What's going on? And it's happening, and people are doing more and more soul searching. And what I'm finding too is when people find out what I do, some people are a little afraid of that. Mm-hmm. Because they've been taught, that's evil.
That's the witches. That's the devil's job. Yeah. Okay.
And
devil's work.
And then I'll say, okay, well, what do you want to talk about? Football, the weather, whatever. They'll say, no. I want to know.
Oh no, it's every time.
It's hilarious.
It's hilarious.
Yeah.
I'm not an intuitive. I am not a channel.
I
I'm
know.
not a medium. And when people find out what I do, they're just like, so,
Yeah.
really?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
They're very curious, where before it would just be, and don't get me wrong, there are still people who do this, but like, this is the devil's work.
Yeah.
You know, you have demons in you, all this kind of ridiculousness. Because I always say the really bad demons and really bad devil, because we speak of love and joining and raising consciousness and awakening and these kind of very positive things. Nothing fear-based, nothing control-based. It's just like, no, find the power within yourself.
Well, I've had a few Catholics over the years. Usually it's evangelicals. And I don't run into that many people that say this, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But Catholics will say, well, I'm Catholic. We're not supposed to do that. And I'll say, oh, but did you know that Pope Francis put out a papal bull, which is kind of like a newsletter, globally saying that he wanted his pastors to welcome psychics and healers because they're doing the work of the Holy Spirit?
No, he did.
Oh, yeah, he did. I can send you the link for it. Oh, yeah. And so my Catholic Church has been given a copy of my book out for years to every family that comes in to plan a funeral. I have many churches and synagogues around the country that give a copy of my book, many hospice facilities, whether they're religious-based or not. And so when I say that to them, it just stops them in their tracks because, Pope did that.
Well, didn't he also just come out with a statement saying, hell, it's kind of an idea. It's not really like a physical...
John Paul II said the same thing.
It's not kind of a physical place with a guy poking you with that kind of thing. But that's what we were sold. I mean,
yeah, for out of the control thing. And when I'll have somebody say, well, you know, I just think this is evil. This is the devil. And I'll say, okay, do you pray? They'll say, well, of course I pray. I'll say, great. To whom are you praying? Jesus, Buddha, whomever. Great. So when you're praying to Jesus, let's just take that as an example. Is Jesus sitting on the couch in your living room next to you having a conversation? Do you get your prayers answered? Yeah, I get my prayers answered all the time. Great. Is Jesus sitting on the couch next to you? Are you having a conversation with Jesus? Well, yeah, I kind of feel like I am. And I'll say, oh, you're talking to a spirit. And you can see their wheels in their head start to turn and they go, I never thought of it that way, but yeah, I guess I am.
I mean, he's on the other side.
And so it's a different perspective.
Yeah, it's just a different It's a
different perspective.
Yeah, it's the way you frame it.
Yeah.
It's exactly how you frame it.
It's like you like Kool-Aid as a kid, but when you're 50, you may not want to drink Kool-Aid. You may want to drink champagne. It's a different perspective of a drink.
Listen, I can't even drink a Mountain Dew. Like, I haven't had a soda in years. But I haven't had a Mountain Dew. I used to drink Mountain Dew like it was water when I was a kid.
You must have been wired.
All the time. Yeah, my mom gave me that one because she thought that had less caffeine than Coca-Cola because it was lighter.
It had more.
Of course it did.
Yeah.
So she never understood it. The internet wasn't around back then. Apparently it was the caffeine intake.
Yeah.
But I drank, like, I had a taste of one like 15 years ago. I was like, oh God, what is
exactly.
this?
So
I couldn't. It's just not my taste
your
buds.
perspective changed.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what happens.
Yeah.
And that's what's going on. So I think it's really an exciting time to be alive because I believe we're here to create. What do you want to create? Well, you create all day long. And we're creating new things, new ways of doing things, my gosh, we're here in Austin. We got the rocket launcher guy right down the street. My goodness, stuff. They get those rockets to come back and land on the launch pad. That's incredible. And all of that development that's happening. And that's just one small area. And I think that it's really exciting to watch it all unfold.
It's been a pretty interesting I'd say the last 10, 15 years. What's happened has been pretty remarkable as far as the technology and the curve. Everything seems to be moving so much faster than it was before.
Plus, our children come in more advanced. Each generation is more advanced. We all know a toddler who can't speak yet but knows how to use an iPad or an iPhone.
Yeah.
And it's like they come in and they already know the technology as little people.
It's like they're wired at the factory like that.
That's right. And so each generation comes in and they're more advanced because they're springboarding off of all of the developments. And I'm an inventor, for heaven's sakes. So they're springboarding off all those developments of the generations that are living and the generations that have already passed.
So, Julie, what if someone's watching this for the first time and this is all blowing their mind, this conversation, and they want to know the question, why are we here? What is my purpose? How do I find my life's purpose? How to be happy? How do I create when I'm I got to pay rent kind of thing? We've all been there. Can you kind of give us a little bit from the point of view of the other side and from what you've seen in your travels? Yeah. All sorts of travels.
Right.
What is the purpose of all of this?
We're here to share, love, and create. Because what I've been told a bazillion times from Spirit in Heaven, I call non-physical heaven, is when a spirit is in heaven, they think of something, it immediately materializes. They think it's fun to come to earth to create because it's not instant for us. We develop it over time. And we all understand, if we think about it from the perspective of we have a goal we want to achieve, we picture how we want to get there. Perhaps we get there through a circuitous route, through a way that we didn't anticipate, but we still get there, get to what our goal is. And what happens as soon as you get there? You create something else that you want to do. You're on to the next project. And that's what happens when we go to heaven, too. We get in heaven and we go, oh, okay, what do I want to do next time? What do I want to explore and experience? So we're always creating. What I've heard from Spirit is they look at us, even when we're going through something that we, from a human perspective, believe is horrific, and it is from a human perspective, but they're up there going, or they're there. I don't think it's up there. I think it's all around us. They're going, oh, cool. What's Alex going to make out of this? Alex wants to do his own studio. What's that going to look like? How's he going to put it together? Wow, this is going to be fun to watch unfold, whether it's a positive thing or a negative thing, because in the spirit world, I've been told also a bazillion times, there's no right or wrong, there's no good or bad. It's just an experience. And it expands our spirit as we go through that experience. It's the adventure of whatever it is we're going through. And that's why we're here. And they see it as fun. That's why spirits reincarnate.
So my understanding as well is because of so many conversations I've had with people from the other side and people like yourself, that in heaven, like you're saying, or on the other side, for lack of a better word, when we create, it's instant.
Yep.
That's just another word for manifestation.
Right.
So the law of attraction and manifestation in heaven, you just go, like in that movie, which you haven't seen yet, you saw the poster in the hallway, What Dreams May Come.
Right.
Robin Williams is just gotten to heaven, and the whole world is made of paint, like oil painting. It's the most beautiful. It's like it won the Oscar for Best Visual Effects. It was absolutely amazing. He's walking in paint sticking to him. It was gorgeous. And then it slowly started to solidify because his wife was a painter, an oil painter. So that's what he brought with him.
Right.
And then slowly everything started to form a little closer. But paint was so he created this, and his guide was saying, "Here, there's more than enough space for each of us to create our own heavens."
Right.
So, but it was instant. Like he's like, oh, I would like to have well, there it is. Oh, there it is. It's instant. While here, there's this kind of everything slows down so much that it takes a lot longer. So if like, hey, I'd love to get that bike. I always use that old secret, the secret analogy. I want a bike. No, I really want a bike. And then one day the bike shows up. Well, when you're in heaven, if you say I want a bike, it's there. But here, put the order in. I'd like a bike. Okay. All right, everyone, let's start working. All right, how are we going to get this bike to him? All right, have him fill this out. He'll win a contest, and he'll get the bike delivered to him a week later. And they're working out on the other side how to bring that into fruition.
Right.
It's like, this was an idea.
Right.
Everything I've done on this show, this company, has been an idea at the beginning.
Right.
Insane ones at that. But they've started to...
Me too.
Exactly.
9 times.
Exactly.
Yep.
So but it's that slowing down process, and I always use the analogy of the ocean, where depending on where your vibration is or frequency is how deep you are in the Mariana Trench. And then as you raise your frequency, you start to go up. As you start to go up, the pressure lessens. You can start moving around a lot easier up until you get to the very top of the water. Right before you break, it's still water, but you can move a lot freer up there because there's not a lot of pressure on you.
Right.
Then you can't, even 10 feet below. But the second you break the surface, now you found enlightenment. Mm-hmm. Now you understand, like, oh, I can play in both worlds now. I can do, okay, I get it. Does that analogy make sense?
It makes a lot of sense, and I think it's a really good point you make, because back to our earlier conversation about the zeitgeist changing, it seems to be that frequency is spinning up in the world. What I do, what you do, is teach people how to communicate with spirit to help them manifest what they want to explore and experience here. And the higher they raise their vibration, and nobody walks around with a high vibration 24/7. I teach people how to do it in a nanosecond. Then you have communication with spirit, and spirit has anything they want to know at their fingertips. Here's an example. I did my in-person training a couple of weeks ago. We had a Harvard scientist who was there as a student, and she's doing a lot of research on cancer and vitamin C. High doses of vitamin C IV.
Yeah, of course, vitamin therapy.
And so Linus Pauling, of course, won the Nobel Prize for curing polio with vitamin C. So we brought in Linus Pauling's spirit in the class. There were 60 people in the room in the class, and she was on stage with me, and we had a conversation with Linus Pauling. Mm-hmm. And she was asking him questions, and he was answering her, and everybody got to witness it. That's the kind of ability that we are moving towards for people who are led to learn this stuff. This is what I teach. It's what others teach. We all communicate with spirit all the time. We're not aware of it. Mm-hmm. We normally don't recognize that that's guidance coming in from spirit, number one. And number two, when we feel badly, we're angry, we're grieving, we're frustrated, we're bored, whatever. Those are low vibrations. Spirit only communicates on the high vibration channel because they don't have the density of a body to slow down their vibration.
They have to be above the water.
Right, exactly, exactly. So you've heard me say this a lot. Spirit doesn't communicate on the I feel crappy channels because the vibration's too low. Right. But we've all had experiences where we think of somebody and we run into them, or we get a text from them, or an email, or a phone call, and we think, well, that's a coincidence. Well, no, it's not. That's your psychic ability. That's your intuitive ability at play. And what most people, like when they lose a loved one, and something will happen. I have a million stories about clients or somebody that's called into my show, and they're telling us about something that's happened, and they're related to their deceased loved one's spirit in heaven. And I say, how you know is it's that first thing that comes into your head, fast as you can snap your finger, or before. Because when you think about it for more than a couple of seconds, that's your brain. Mm-hmm. But spirit communicates, it's instant.
And it's feeling-based in a lot of times.
As long as it feels neutral or good, spirit's always going to say something either neutral or good. They're never going to say anything derogatory. They're never going to say anything abusive. They're never going to say, oh, Alex, you're just this awful guy who drools. Yeah. It's not going to happen.
Right.
And people that tell me, well, I have this spirit telling me all this evil stuff. I'm going, that's your brain. That's not spirit. Raise your vibrational level and let's communicate.
But how can you tell the difference between your brain and a message from the other side?
First thing that comes in. Fast as you can snap your finger, or before you finish the thought all the way. So if you want to communicate with Elvis, you just go, hey, Elvis, attention, intention. Attention, Elvis. Our heads are big satellite dishes. They receive and transmit frequencies. Every spirit has a frequency they keep throughout all their lifetimes. Mm-hmm. So you think of Elvis, attention. Your intention is to communicate with him. Your satellite dish tunes to the Elvis frequency. You say something to him. It opens up this two-way, kind of like a radio channel. Mm-hmm. Hey, Elvis, what do you think of my new studio? And he'll say, well, Alex. And you'll hear something and it'll come back in your head instantly, or sometimes before you've even finished thinking the thought all the way, because time doesn't exist in the spirit world. Time's a human creation. So Elvis already has your thought and is responding sometimes before you've even finished thinking the thought. Because there is a time thing here in our human existence, but there isn't in heaven. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Now, I wanted to kind of go into the afterlife because so many people are curious about what happens on the other side.
Yeah.
Like I always joke, everybody wants to go to heaven, just not right now.
Exactly. Right.
So can you describe the structure or kind of organization that is on the other afterlife? Because from, again, my perspective, my experience speaking to so many people on the show, my understanding is it's not only structured and organized, it's the ultimate organization and structure in many ways, but not the way we're thinking of it from a human perspective. This universe is a completely organized chaos in many ways, but it seems like chaos, but it isn't. So there's so many systems in place. You just look at nature. It's so perfectly balanced and organized, from every little tree frog that eats that specific kind of beetle, and without that beetle, pooping, it doesn't help the trees. And it's all this perfect orchestra, a symphony, if you will, a symphony that is so perfect. It seems like that's what it is on the other side as well. From your perspective, what is this kind of organizational structure that we can kind of understand?
We can understand it. It's so far beyond anything that we can relate to. We have no human perspective for it. What I understand is that all spirit's pure love. Mm-hmm. What I understand is all spirit can do, and I use the word spirit instead of soul. Soul sounds religious to me as a Catholic
God
girl.
or source,
Yeah, so I use spirit. And same thing, that's just my vernacular, what I'm using. So anything we imagine immediately materializes. We are around our loved ones and others. You think about all the lifetimes we've lived. We can be around all of them all at the same time, which makes my head want to explode.
Sure.
Because I don't understand it. And yet I go back to we're all made in the image and likeness of God. And most of us think, okay, God looks like an old man sitting on a throne on a cloud, wearing a white gown, long white hair and stuff. God is spirit. Yeah. God is everywhere. God is source. So we all have a fractal of the divine in us. That's our spirit. Mm-hmm. And we can be everywhere at the same time. So when I am working with a client or somebody who's called into my show, and they'll say, well, what's my granddad, want to tell my grandmother? Mm-hmm. One of my favorite stories is this little gal called into the show, and her granddad had been put into a memory care unit, and he died the first night he was there. Mm-hmm. And her grandmother was just so full of, regret and grief, and did I do the wrong thing, and did I kill him, and all that stuff. So she called into my show. Her name is Chloe. And she said, can you talk to my grandfather, and does he have some words for my grandmother? And he said he was not mad, it was all fine, but then he said, take her a daisy and tell her it's from me. And I said to her, look up the significance of daisies. And he was really adamant, not a bouquet of daisies, just one daisy. Mm-hmm. So, and it was in the fall. I said, good luck trying it finding one daisy, at the grocery store or wherever. So we released the show. The next morning, I get an email from somebody who had listened to the show early. This was 7 a.m. And she said her grandfather is referring to the song, I'll give you a daisy a day, dear, I'll give you a daisy a day, or the lyrics, I'll love you until the rivers run still and the clouds all blow away. Well, come to find out, she told me later, that was their favorite song. So spirit communicates symbolically a lot of the time. They will talk in sentences and paragraphs and things like that. But when we get a thought that comes into our head and it's instant, no matter how random it seems, follow it. Take your grandmother one daisy. She did the next morning, and all of this came out of that as a result.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's really fun. I mean, I have tens of thousands of stories of spirit that sends these messages that seem like they're just so random.
What advice does spirit have for people right now who are very fearful of things that are happening around the world, between economy and wars and food and religion and media, every aspect of life? What does the spirit have to say to kind of let them know, hey, it's going to be okay?
Lighten up, Francis, first is what I heard. And then secondly, I heard turn off the news.
Turn off the
news.
Mainstream.
Turn off the news.
Yeah, turn on mainstream news.
Watch Alex's new Next Level Soul channel. Watch the Hallmark channel. Yeah. I mean, it's all, they always kiss at the end. And
that's true.
Yeah, really. It's attention, intention. What we focus our intention is what we feel. So if you're watching violent, really depressing things all the time, you're going to feel like that because the body's going to follow what the brain tells it, even if it's pretend. This movie magic.
Yeah, of course.
Frozen 2, I'm watching Frozen 2. I'm bawling watching Frozen 2. And I'm thinking, Ryan, get a grip. This is pretend. This is a movie.
It's not even people up there.
And it's not even people. It's animated. And you're crying.
Oh, you watch WALL-E and don't cry.
Well, exactly. Steel Magnolias.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the other day I was talking to somebody who had lost her dad, and she said, I can't cry. And I said, turn on Steel Magnolias. And that's a really good thing for people who are grieving. I tell them that a lot. I'll say, watch a movie that's really sad, and it will unleash the tears. And then your grieving tears will mix with the tears from watching Steel Magnolias, and it all comes out.
So when I was working at the video store, the two movies that I recommended for tears is Steel Magnolias and Beaches.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly.
Beaches with Bette Midler.
The Wings Beneath My Wings.
Oh, my God. It was brutal.
Yeah.
It was a brutal. Those are brutal
Brian's
films.
Song, back when I was a kid.
Brian's Song.
There's a lot
Sophie's
of them.
Choice.
Exactly.
I mean, there's a ton of great old sad movies that are just love story.
Right.
I mean, if you want to go really back.
Right.
But yeah, so that's basically it. Stop watching the media.
The news in particular.
But start tuning into higher frequency content.
Well, and back to the news, you think about it, it's all about the ad dollars.
Yeah, and
so
fear sells that.
Fear gets more eyeballs to watch. The more eyeballs that watch, the more they can charge for their ad dollars, and then it increases their revenue. It makes their shareholders happy. So it's a game. They know that. If it bleeds, it leads.
Right. It's literally a term.
The whole broadcast is going to be about bad stuff. They may have one, here's our inspiring story
at
of
the
the
very
night.
end. At the other end for like a minute.
Yeah.
It's a minute story, a 30-second story. And there was this cat in the tree, and this old lady climbed up and grabbed it for it.
Exactly.
That's
exactly.
it.
But I think that's all part of the confluence, that converging that we talked about earlier, of people starting to understand that. I mean, I don't know anybody that watches the mainstream news at night. My parents watched it every night at 6 o'clock.
Or, God forbid, cable news. Oh, good Lord. Any of them.
But it's people realizing, okay, this is a game. This is what they're doing. And I feel bad when I watch it, and I'm worried about what's going on the other side of the world. And yes, you want to have compassion for those people, but really, what can you do about it?
Right.
Individually.
And I don't know if you've noticed or not, but the numbers from those news networks,
plummeting.
They're plummeting because people are just not buying it anymore.
Right.
People are tired of it.
Well, we saw that with the election.
We saw that with the election. We saw that with COVID. We saw that with so many different things that people were just like, I still remember during COVID, there was one network that literally had a death toll, a running death toll. I'm like, there's more people dying from flu. There's more people dying from heart attacks than they are of COVID on a daily basis.
Right.
But yet the frenzy was so high. And that's when I think a lot of people's perception of the mainstream media changed dramatically, especially during COVID. It was COVID and the elections, all of them, the last 4 or 5 of them. You could just see them getting it wrong. And it's so skewed depending on which channel you're watching. It's insane.
Well, and we see it in health too. We're seeing a huge shift in people that Vani Hari, who went up to Kellogg's with the Fruit Loops, with all the dyes and all the awful chemicals that are in American cereal, but they're not in foreign cereal because their governments won't allow them into the country. And so many people come to me because, I'm a medical intuitive and energy healer. And so many people come to me. It's probably 80% of the people with whom I work, where they've been to multiple doctors and they've had multiple diagnoses and put on different treatment plans, whether that involved physical therapy and medicine or whatever, and they still have the same symptoms, and they're saying there's got to be more to the story. Not that the doctors are doing anything with malicious intent. They're not. It's how they were trained. It's what their societies teach them, and there's more to the story. So we're seeing much more conversation, from my perspective, in big famous universities. University of Virginia has a past life division. University of Minnesota has mind body medicine. Harvard is doing this. Johns Hopkins is doing this.
Stanford is doing it. Yeah,
Stanford's been doing it for a long time.
Sure.
And in especially the medical industry, it takes on average about 20 years for a new technique to get into the mainstream. It really does. It's crazy.
Well, like epigenetics. I mean, when Bruce was talking about it, everyone was like, "You're insane." And now,
stem cell energy. I use stem cell energy every day, Alex, with clients. It'll regenerate any body part we need. It's fantastic. It used to be when somebody had a kidney that needed to be replaced, and I'd watch a healing in my head. I'd spirit working through me and with me to help facilitate healing. I'd see something that would mimic what I saw in the operating room, developing products, testing prototypes, stuff like that. And I'd see the donor patient. I'd see the patient that was going to receive the new kidney. I'd watch the healthy kidney get removed from the donor patient. This is all like I'm watching a movie in my head. I'd watch the diseased kidney get removed. I'd watch it get put in, all that stuff. Now I see a mold of a kidney. I see stem cell energy that goes into that mold. It generates a new kidney. I watch the diseased kidney get removed. I watch the new kidney get put back in. I watch all the clamps and stuff get removed. It's all the plumbing's hooked back up. And there have been many instances where that new organ shows up on a scan and the docs are going, okay, what's going on here?
Right.
And I've had some of them call me over the years and say, okay, what are you doing? And how's this stuff work?
So, Julie, I want to ask you this because you're a medical intuitive, and I've never asked a medical intuitive this. When like a perfect example, Wayne Dyer, the late great Wayne Dyer, he died, I think it was of cancer, if I'm not mistaken. Leukemia, exactly. Mm-hmm. But he had John of God do a healing on him, and it worked for a period of time, but then it came back. From your point of view, what causes, because healings, after a healing, and this actually goes for everything, from like when you moved out the cancer and it's back. It was gone for 5 years, and all of a sudden it's back. From a more of a healing from the other side, and also a third dimensional healing. Why do these things come back? Specifically with Wayne. He spoke all about it. He spoke about how it happened, what happened to him afterwards. He was like walking around like he had a surgery, even though he didn't, and he had healed and he came back. But then, I don't know, a few years later, he basically died.
Yeah.
So why does that happen?
Several points to that question, several phases to that question, if you will. First of all, there's always an emotional component in place before any kind of disease or illness manifests, 100% of the time. 100% of the time. So that's the most important part of a healing. When I'm working with somebody, I'm like a human MRI. I can see inside people's bodies with their permission. I can see cancer. I can see broken bones. I can see torn ligaments, viral infections, bacterial infections, whatever. The healing takes place on the energetic level. It's going to integrate into their body. It's spirit working through me and with me to help them heal, because nobody heals anybody else. Whether you're a doctor or other medical provider, whether you're an energy healer, we all heal ourselves. You know, you have a big cut on your leg and you go to the emergency room. Right. They're going to stitch it up. That doctor's not going to make your skin grow back. You make your own skin grow back. That's how that works. And there's always an emotional component. The way that I see it, Alex, is our spirit's the main part of us. That's the everlasting part. Our body is inside our spirit. Mm-hmm. The spirit is the power source for the body, which is why when somebody's spirit and their body separate, when somebody transitions, the body don't work anymore because it's not plugged in. Mm-hmm. Surrounding that, the container for the energy that comprises the body and the spirit is something I call the energy field membrane. When there's a tear or a hole in the energy field membrane, which reminds me of really thin, stretchy saran wrap, the kind that you'd see on a tray of chicken breasts from the grocery store, it's different than the Glad wrap in a box in our kitchen drawers. When there's a tear or hole in that energy field membrane, there's an energy leak. Body's leaking power before any kind of disease or illness or medical condition sets in. So in the work that I do, I'll envision going into that tear or hole, and I'll be shown a scene. And I'll get the year and where it was and a little bit about what happened. It may be something that happened in this lifetime. It may be something that happened in a past life. Those are really fun because a lot of the time we can validate the information we receive with historic documentation online.
Sure.
So a couple of examples. It may be something very seemingly simplistic, like somebody called you a bad name when you were 3 and it hurt your feelings.
Okay.
Maybe something dramatic. Doesn't matter what it was, because what I'm looking for is where did an energy block begin from that emotional experience? Example, somebody called you a poopy head when you were 3. We look at that as adults and we think, well, that was no big deal.
But
it was a big deal to your 3-year-old little self when that happened. My favorite story about a dramatic event happened to a client who lives on the Isle of Guernsey, one of the northern English Isles, British Isles. And I saw this scene of her, Alex, and she was a preteen. And I saw this explosion behind her. Wow. And I said, does that make any sense to you? And she said, oh, God, yeah. I was a victim of an IRA bombing when I was 11. She said, I stood up on this park bench to see this crowd. We were at some kind of festival or something. The explosion went off. All the shrapnel went into the side of my body. She said, I still have shrapnel in my thigh. And I thought, okay, that'll do it. That's a traumatic experience. So that forms an energy block. The energy block to me looks like a little kernel of unpopped popcorn.
Okay.
Gets stuck in the energy field. And then other life events pile the energy, emotional energy, piles on top of it, eventually causing enough pressure causes a blowout in the membrane. Again, it's always there before any kind of medical condition arises. So we illuminate it. As soon as we illuminate it, I'm not going for what was the most dramatic or traumatic thing in your life. I'm going for where did that energy block begin? Right. Because many therapists will say, now, Alex, it's going to be like we're peeling an onion when we talk about your life, and we're going to peel it a layer at a time. I'm a businesswoman. Let's just cut to the chase.
Sure.
I want the onion out by the root.
Sure. So
we get it out, energy field membrane heals, body's working on full power. I've never seen one ruptured after it's been healed, ever. I'm not saying it can't. I've just never seen it happen in tens of thousands of cases that I've been involved with. So back to Wayne. I'm tying this back in. Wayne, most likely, most people have a perforation in their energy field membrane by the age of about 15. Wayne had that. I don't know what John of God did with him. I read the book. I saw he did a healing on him and all of that. So it will come back if they're still leaking power, is my experience. How it integrated into his body and how it integrates the healings into anybody's body is the prerogative of that person's spirit. We don't know what that person has experienced in past lives. We don't know what they want to experience in this life. So it's all going to be predicated on what that person's spirit wants to explore and experience. Right. And furthermore, The healing, I believe, did happen, even though it was still showing up in his tests from allopathic medicine. And yet we don't know if he changed what was causing that from a physical standpoint. We don't know if he changed what he was eating or drinking. We don't know if he changed what his lifestyle was. So there's so many factors that can come in.
Okay.
When somebody has something like cancer that comes back, I do healings on cancer patients that involve their DNA being resequenced back to a normal recipe. When somebody has a disease like cancer, there's a mutation in the gene. So I watch, and it's epigenetics. You referenced that earlier. So I'll watch that DNA get resequenced. And if it comes back, we can resequence the DNA because cancer is very crafty. It's going to morph to stay alive. So we can update that DNA. It takes a couple seconds. And then the cancer markers go back down. It's really interesting what I get to see in my mind's eye. It's never boring. And I always tell my clients and people that call into my show, I always say, it's very common for me to say, oh, this is cool. I haven't seen this healing before. Because it can involve something getting removed, something getting added. It can be in the form of something that emulates what I saw in surgery for all of those years, can be new devices, new methodologies that haven't been invented yet. And so it's fascinating.
So that's amazing. So one thing that a lot of people going through loss right now, someone that they love, someone in hospice, someone with dementia or, any of those or all of those different kinds of diseases that are slowly taking out the person. Not the heart attack. I'm not talking about that. But the slower processes. We discussed on another episode a little bit about the 12 days.
Phases of transition.
12 phases of transition. Can you kind of guide some people through that again real quick? Because I think it's something that, for whatever reason, I believe that whoever's listening to this needs to hear it. So I think we're going to bring it back in.
Yeah, and I'll give them a free copy of my book if they want. So we'll tell them about that later. So back to where bodies attached to a spirit having a human experience.
Correct.
The spirit's the main part of us. You think about the old masters' paintings of saints and angels and Jesus. They have a halo around them. That's their spirit. It's their aura. It's their energy field. It's all the same thing. The body is inside the spirit. We just talked about that. So when somebody is dying, they go through what I have coined the 12 phases of transition. The spirit starts to disconnect from the body and hangs onto the top of the head. It looks like a cartoon caption bubble or a speech bubble. And then deceased loved ones and angels show up that are part of what I call the Welcome to Heaven Committee. And the first spirit to show up, and this surprised me a lot, Alex, is the maternal spirit closest to the person who's dying.
Interesting.
Yeah. First of all, well, it's probably going to be their guardian angel. No, guardian angel's there, but it's the maternal spirit running the show from the spirit world. The maternal spirit brings in the other spirits, brings in the angels, brings in the spirits of deceased pets. And I've seen this tens of thousands of times in my mind's eye, to the point where I can describe what the spirits look like, and they'll say, oh, that's Grandpa Joe, and that's Cousin Susie, and whatever.
Sure.
And my collie, Lassie, is there. So as the person gets closer to death, then more spirits arrive. The phase early on is the mother spirit arrives, and then big angels arrive, as I perceive them. Catholic girl angels, right? Big wings, tall, white gown, white, hair that's got soft curls flowing down to their shoulders. Is that what angels really look like? That's what they look like to me, because that's what I was taught they look like.
Right.
Somebody growing up in an indigenous culture in the Amazon may see angel energy that looks just like a ball of purple energy. So angels form a circle with the parent spirits as the anchor at the dying person's feet. Okay, as the dying person's getting closer to death, that circle opens up into a horseshoe, eventually a straight line across the bottom of the bed. And I'll come back to that in a minute. As that's unfolding over those 12 phases, which, by the way, 2 + 1 = 3, and in the Bible, 3 is divine perfection. 3 means divine perfection. So I think it's interesting that it came in as 12. So a couple of nuances. All the pet spirits arrive, and it's fun when I see barnyard animal spirits that are there. I can see cows and chicks and horses and ducks.
Oh, my.
Exactly. And I'll say, now, Alex, did your grandmother grow up on a farm, or does she live on a farm now? And you'll say, yeah. I'll say, okay, here's what kind of spirit animals are here. Furthermore, as the person's getting closer to that, more and more and more spirits are arriving, and they're in period dress. You know, you may see somebody like in Renaissance dress chomping on a turkey leg, like you see at a Renaissance fair, or somebody in 1960s attire in a mini skirt and go-go boots, or something like that, which is really fun to see that. And there's so many spirits in this Welcome to Heaven committee that they look like dots on the horizon. I mean, thousands and thousands and thousands of them show up. About phase 6, there are extra angels, 2 extra angels that show up, and they're on either side of that spirit bubble. About phase 9, their wings start to move. And I thought, first time I saw this was with my own mother when she was dying in 2002. And I'd never witnessed any of this stuff. And I thought, I'm going to turn my radar on and see if I can see something. And, oh, my God, this is where all this came from.
Right.
So on one hand, my heart's breaking because my mother's dying. And on the other hand, I'm going, holy Moses, this is amazing from a spiritual perspective. It gives a glorious component to a heart-wrenching situation. So when their wings move, they create a vortex above the dying person's head. And when that happened with my mom, I thought, okay, this is going to play a big role. It's going to be interesting to see what it does. And as that vortex forms, I can feel it, I can see it, I can hear it, and it's this upward draft that's very strong. Reminds me of going through the car wash at the end, and they turn the dryer on, and it's sucking all the water off your car. That's what it feels like. And that is, in fact, what happens is that spirit evacuates through that vortex. Vortex mathematics is a really big thing. It's involved in everything spiritual. I teach about this. And 369, those numbers are all really important. But I see vortices in the energy healing that I do. When something's being generated with stem cell energy, whether it be a new liver or kidney or whatever, there's a vortex that's formed that's creating it. When somebody's dying, there's a vortex that forms. Really, in most, when somebody is going through the pearly gates, which looks like a big plasma wall to me, big bright yellowish plasma wall.
Okay.
There's a vortex. There's an energetic pull that's bringing them forward. So they evacuate. They then escort that spirit to heaven, using heaven as air quotes. When I was writing my book, Angelic Attendants, the most interesting thing to me were 2 points. Number one, when something flies, whether it be a bird, a plane, a kite, whatever, jet, there are vortices that form that cause upward lift. So I was led to research. It reminds me, these angel wings moving remind me of big owl's wings, you know, silent, smooth, but lots of drag. And so I just did an internet search on that, and I learned about the wingtip vortex. You talk to any pilot, they know all about the wingtip vortex because that's what gives the plane lift. And I thought, good heavens, I'm seeing these angel wings in the spirit realm cause something I can perceive and feel and hear in the human realm, and it helps that spirit evacuate from the body. Furthermore, university-based research shows that 90% of people see their deceased loved ones and pet spirits as they're nearing the end of their lives. 90%. And lastly, there's a prayer called In Paradisum. That is Latin for into paradise. when I was writing my book, I researched it, and I found that it originated as a 5th century Gregorian chant. So perhaps it took until the 5th century, because most people were illiterate until really fairly recently in our history, our human race history. So maybe it took till the 5th century until somebody was well educated enough that they could read and write. Certainly some of the most learned people were men in monasteries and synagogues. So I picture this monk, writing down this prayer that is something that he and everybody else can see as somebody's transitioning. And it's said at the end of every Catholic funeral in Paradisum. Every funeral mass includes that prayer. So at my mother's funeral, I thought, whoa, I just saw this happen.
Right.
And, when she was dying, it was amazing. One other really important point about the 12 phases of transition. We talked about earlier how time doesn't exist in the spirit world.
Correct.
So everybody goes through the 12 phases, whether it's instantly, like in the case of a homicide or suicide, or whether that transition unfolds over days, weeks, months, years. Everybody goes through the 12 phases of transition, is what I've been told, and that's what I've experienced. Because I can go back and do an instant replay of when somebody actually dies and in their dying, last days. And so I'll see all of that unfold in my mind's eye.
As a cafeteria Catholic,
Yeah.
You mentioned something, and it's a topic is a touchy subject, but it's something that, especially the Catholics in the audience, always wanted to know what happens actually when someone takes their life.
Yeah.
What, we were told that straight to hell, no pass go, do not collect $200 kind of thing, which is also part of the plot for What Dreams May Come. He has to go into hell to bring him back out and all this kind of stuff. It's a beautiful movie. So if this happens, I've heard two sides of the story. I've heard the story that religion told me, which is, hey, it's a mortal sin. You're done. But then I've heard from others that say, no, that's not the case. Can you kind of put it out there exactly what happens?
Yeah. The church has really gotten away from that. Again, I'm not an authority on the Catholic Church, but
Sure.
I understand that. You notice how limbo, where the unbaptized babies supposedly went, they've just it just has fallen off.
Limbo. Don't even
Purgatory.
start me on this purgatory.
Purgatory
limbo
is
thing with
just kind of fallen by the wayside. Same thing with suicide. I have been to funerals in Catholic churches of people who died by suicide. And I had a woman on my show named, her first name's Leanne. I'll think of her last name in a minute. But her son died by suicide, and she said, we've got to change the vernacular from committed suicide to died by suicide, because nobody's going to do that if they're in their right frame of mind. They're not going to take their own life. And so I've trained myself to change that. So somebody dies by suicide. The other answer to your question, from my perspective, is the 80s movie All Dogs Go to Heaven. All people go to heaven as well, regardless of how evil, air quotes, they were when they were alive. Most people in our generation think of Hitler. You think of Hitler and you think, oh my goodness. I mean, that guy hopefully is burning for eternity. His spirit was pure love. That was a role he was playing. It's like we're all in our own movies, and we're playing a role so that our spirit can expand by exploring different things we're creating. We go back to there's no good or bad in the spirit world. It's just an experience that expands our spirit or our soul. Big change in way of thinking based on how all of us were raised.
Right.
Yeah. We do have right and wrong, good or bad in the human experience because we need to.
Yeah, it's duality.
We'd be killing each other, and that would be, craziness. We wouldn't be able to explore and experience what we're doing. But I have people that will say to me, clients and people that call into the show, and they'll say, I don't want my mother's spirit there when I'm dying. She was the bitch from hell. And I'll say, it was a role she was playing.
Yeah.
And when you get to heaven and you see her spirit, you can take her an Oscar and say, Mom, you deserve the Academy Award because you did great in that
so
role.
much from you.
Oh, my goodness. And then there are lots of schools of thought that we choose where we're born, when we're born, to whom we're born, and the circumstances into which we're born so that we can have our lives on a trajectory that will allow us to explore and experience things that we came in to explore. Do we know that for sure? I don't know, but it's feasible. I can go there. Yeah.
Well, that's why it's when with this kind of absolute black and white thing of let's say we're using the Catholic Church as an example about people who take their lives. When Robin Williams passed, he took his life.
Right.
But he was literally ill.
Yeah.
His mind was ill. His disease had taken over.
Right.
So to say to that man, that soul is like, oh, well, bad luck.
Versus if he died from cancer?
As opposed to, babies who are not baptized.
Limbo. Don't you love that term, limbo?
I mean, come on.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too, Alex, if you think about it is, I believe, and I've heard this a million times from Spirit, we all decide when we're born, where we're born, to whom we're born, that whole thing. But we also decide when we die, where we die, who's with us when we die, and what the circumstances are that surround our death. So if we believe that, which I do, is all death a form of suicide if we're choosing how we go?
Well, that's also, and there's
something to ponder.
Yeah, and then but from an earthly point of view or a three-dimensional point of view, a loved one of yours is murdered.
Yeah.
It's a tough pill to swallow.
It is. And yet, when I talk to spirits of people who've been murdered or who have died by suicide or however, it's never going to make sense to the family members that are still alive, ever. And it's not supposed to.
Sure.
But what they say is, somebody that was murdered, it was great. It was fast. I was out of there. I didn't suffer. It was perfect. It was a perfect exit. Same thing with somebody that dies by suicide. Same thing with somebody that dies instantly. Will we ever understand that from our human perspective? No, we won't. But when you get to heaven, you will. Mm-hmm. And everything, I've been told, everything makes sense the second you get there. You got it.
Yeah, you get an automatic download.
Automatic.
I call it you get hooked up to the iCloud.
Yeah.
Of all the information of everything that's ever done, all of a sudden you have it instantly. Like, what's quantum physics? Oh, got it.
Yeah.
It's instant.
Yeah. In one of my classes, we have a guy who's a graduate who's this brilliant engineer, mathematician, and he was working on some algorithm that was way above my pay grade. Mm-hmm. And he wanted to work with Einstein. So we brought Einstein in, and we all heard Einstein and him going after this problem, and they solved it. It was wild. That's like I was talking about Linus Pauling coming in this last class.
Well, let's dig into that for a second, because from people's point of view, I know we look at everything through the lens of the human experience.
Right.
So we're thinking like that there's literally that Einstein is up in heaven. He's got a nice little condo somewhere. He's chilling. Every day he wakes up, because there's time there. Yeah. Every day he wakes up, he's kind of retired. Maybe he's like, what does he do all day? Oh, maybe he just like works on, physics stuff and, all that kind of stuff. And then someone calls it, let me just go down there and someone else is over there. And, I got a 2:00 over here. And that's from our point of view, that you can't be in two places at the same time.
Right.
My understanding is there's the soul, and then these experiences of are representations of lives. So I'll call it the oversoul, for lack of a better term. And then I was Einstein, I was Genghis Khan, I was Cleopatra. Apparently that soul's really, very, really popular. But let's say this one soul had all of those incarnations, Roman soldier and so on. When someone who wants to connect with the Roman soldier, let's say he was a great general.
Yeah.
That version of him exists.
Right.
And can jump into infinite amounts of people at the same time and have full conversations. Like it's like fragments of that soul. So that's how it makes sense, because Einstein's not just sitting around. Einstein's probably been reincarnated at this point.
Oh, many times.
If not more.
Yeah.
Doing something else.
Yeah.
But his Einsteinness is still on the other side, while another fractal of the oversoul is experiencing, being a little girl in Alabama right now.
Exactly.
And I wanted to be a little girl in Alabama right now. Kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I think that's a really good analogy for it. Here's my understanding is we keep the same, as I mentioned before, the same frequency. It's like you're turning to 105.7, you're listening to country music, and you turn to 103.4 and you're listening to disco. Mm-hmm. Okay, different frequency. Einstein, if he's reincarnated, who knows how many times, because then you get into multiple realities all existing concurrently, which really makes my head want to explode.
I understand, yes, parallel. Yes.
But it's fascinating.
Oh, I
Is
know.
it feasible? Yeah.
It makes sense, actually.
It's feasible.
But then your head really starts to hurt.
Well, yeah. So what we're doing is we're communicating with Einstein, and he's communicating the stuff, attention, intention. My students' attention went to Einstein with the intention of solving this mathematical algorithm. Furthermore, when I'm working with somebody on a past life scan, most people hypnotize the person with whom they're working. I don't. I'm a businesswoman. Cut to the chase. I see myself in this endless hallway, very tall ceilings, very narrow walls. On the walls are 12-inch by 12-inch square mirrors. Each mirror represents a different lifetime. We'll ask a question. Was Alex in the movie business in a past life? The mirrors that correlate with that will come out from the wall as if they're on a hydraulic arm. And then I'll say, show me the one that correlates the most. It will come out the farthest. I'll envision myself walking into that mirror, and then I'll be told where it was, when it was. It's like I'm walking into the scene of a movie. We can do that. We can see different people who are in their current life that were in that past life and identify, well, that was Grandma Jackie. That was Grandpa Fred. That was whoever. And to take it a step further, spirit guides who've lived many, many lifetimes. Spirit guides all show up to me looking like a version of Father Time. Dumbledore from the Harry Potter movies, old man, white long hair, white beard. Gandalf from the Lord of the Rings movies. Different sizes, heights, whatever. That's how I perceive them. And then when we focus on, okay, Alex is in the entertainment business, whether it be movies or whether you're doing
music,
whatever. Who's the spirit guide that's the main spirit guide that's advising you on that? Then they'll morph into Sam Goldwyn or somebody like that. I have a client who is in the entertainment business, and Sam Goldwyn's COO is his spirit guide. And we've got the guy's name, and we've got where it was, where, what his career was. We could corroborate all of it with historic documents online. And that spirit guide is advising my client in his career. So they morph into looking like what they look like in the lifetime that matches what they're advising about, if it's something specific. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. So let's say I want to open up a movie studio.
Yeah.
And we just launched our streaming platform. So let's say I want to open up a movie studio. I want to start making just movies and documentaries and series in this space.
Right.
And I would love to, who can I call? Can I call Walt Disney?
Absolutely.
So if I call Walt Disney in, because he's obviously one of the greatest, creators and people in the film industry of all time, does his knowledge from when he built a company, does that translate to today? Because those are two very different times.
Absolutely, because it's the entrepreneurial advice he's going to give you will translate to this time. And I would take it a step further, and I would say, can I please have a team assembled that can help me with this mission that I'm on? So, you may have Sam Goldwyn, you may have Walt Disney, you may have
David O. Schwartz,
you may have somebody current. You may have Steve Jobs, you may have whomever. I have a CEO of a Fortune 500 company that's publicly traded who's a client, and his mastermind group, if you will, Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, that whole mastermind group, those were all spirits, those guys, the Henry Fords and the Harvey Firestone and, and all those guys, Edison and all those guys had. they come in, this guy, my client, has a mastermind group that involves people like Abraham Lincoln, that we didn't expect, titans of industry. Sam Walton's one of them. Mary Kay Ash came in. You know, Mary Kay, the pink Cadillac Mary Kay. And my client's this very macho guy, and he goes, Mary Kay? And I said, look, Mary Kay built an amazing sales force of moms and wives who made lots of money, and she built a multi-million dollar company based on these women that nobody was paying any attention to. So I think she makes tons of sense to be. So my point is, don't limit it to just one person. Ask a more generalized question. May I have a team assembled who can help me on my journey as I'm creating this new network?
Does it have to be someone from those fields? So like, let's say you're opening up a network or a studio, and you have titans of industry and studio and tech and all that, like Steve Jobs and Walt Disney and Walton and all these big titans of industry. Does it have to be specific to the industry, or can like an ascended master like a Yogananda or a Jesus walk in and go, this is what you need to do?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, back to my client. He's in the medical business. You know, he's got care facilities, and he's got Mary Kay Ash and Abraham Lincoln.
Got it.
Didn't have anything to do with that, which is why I think it makes sense to open it up and let it be broader, because Spirit knows better what we need than what we know, because our perspective is so limited.
Right. It's like when you ask for, like, I really want to date that one girl.
Yeah.
And you're like, why isn't it working out? Because she's not right for you, and we know better. And in about 3 years, you're going to want to, just get away from this person because she'll do this or that. Like,
right.
We only see this.
Right.
We don't see the larger
And
picture.
it's all based on our human frame of reference.
Right.
The other thing is that future events are fluid. So somebody can give you something that's going to happen in the future, but there are a bazillion variables that can change that in 2 minutes, in 2 days, in 2 years, and 20 years, whatever.
Right. If you tell me what's going to happen in 20 years, you're like, good. There's a chance that this big, and it would have to be a very big thing. It wouldn't be like, you're going to eat a hamburger in 2037 that's going to be bad, and you're going to get food poisoning that day, and you're going to go to like, that's not something you're going to see that far out, right? Because there's just way too many
there are too many variables. Your free will, somebody else's free will.
I stopped eating meat by then. Who knows?
Yeah. And when somebody is looking for advice for a future event, like a career move or a physical move to a different city, like when you move from LA to here, what I always suggest to people, and I do this on my show and I do it with clients too, is preface whatever your question is with, is it in my best interest to ... fill in the blank. Is it in my best interest to build a studio? Is it in my best interest to, like you did, move from LA to Austin? Is it in my best interest to whatever? And then that takes into all possible scenarios and all variables when we leave it very broad-based. And it's been my experience over 30 years, Alex, that the more generic a question can be when we're looking for advice, the better off it's going to be. Now, if you want something right away advice, like you want to watch a movie tonight and you're asking your grandma in heaven, you're like, hey, Granny, am I going to enjoy the movie tonight? And you hear a yes, first thing in your head again. And you're watching some movie tonight and it's awful. And you're thinking, Granny, what's up with that? Well, the way you asked it could pertain to any movie you're going to watch for the rest of your life. Whereas if you said, hey, Granny, are we going to enjoy watching Frozen 2 tonight on Disney Plus? By the way, Frozen 2 is fabulous for anybody that hasn't seen it.
It's a good film.
So, whether you're a kid or a grown-up. But see how specific that is? So if you need advice right away, be super, super specific, because Spirit's always going to give us a correct answer. But how applicable it will be to your current situation will be predicated on how you ask the question.
Okay. All right. Julie, what is the biggest obstacles, the biggest challenges humanity has in this transition in the next 10, 20 years of consciousness, of the awakening, of raising our frequency? What is the biggest challenges we have to deal with?
Realizing when a fear is a real fear or a fake fear.
What's the difference?
A real fear is something that can harm you or kill you. It's called a rational fear. If you're in the road and there's a truck headed towards you, get out of the road. Yep. That's a rational fear. A fake fear or an irrational fear is everything else. And it's 99.9999999% of the thoughts that we think that feel bad. So our emotions are an internal GPS system we all come in with. Mm-hmm. And we need to be able to discern between what's a real fear and what's a fake fear. Because when we go into fear, whether it's real or not, our bodies go into fight or flight. We have an autonomic nervous system response.
Correct.
When somebody's in fight or flight, the blood drains from their brain. On brain scans, the frontal lobes of the brain are dark. There's no activity. So the blood drains from the brain, goes to the heart and extremities, so that the person can run away from whatever the person, the lion that's chasing them or whatever. Right. But there's a very different scenario when you're running late for an appointment. It's not going to kill you, but what's happening? The blood's drained from your brain because you're in fight or flight. Your cortisol levels go up. Your norepinephrine levels go up. You're panicking. You've lost clarity. So if we can stay out of that fight or flight mode,
right,
that's the key.
Yeah.
Because spirit doesn't communicate on the I feel crappy channels. And when you've lost clarity and you're in fear, fear is a low vibration. So you can't get guidance and you can't think clearly. And so I have a trick for that. May I share it?
Please.
You know it. The 2-minute rule.
Yeah.
Here's how you do it. When you ask, is this going to kill me in the next 2 minutes? It's a yes or no answer. If it's yes, get out of the road before the truck runs you over. If the answer is no, that's a fake fear. The key with the 2-minute rule is you can ask it in any situation, unlimited times in a day. It's free and it's convenient. It works anywhere your brain is, and your brain's usually with you wherever you are. So the 2-minute rule has changed my life. When that came in from spirit, I thought, whoa, this is a big deal. And all of my training's predicated on it because you can't communicate with spirit when you're in fear. And every emotion that feels bad is based in fear. Anger, jealousy, boredom, grief, overwhelm. It's all based in fear. And we go in this black hole that's a vortex again, that vortex thing showing up where we think, God, if I miss this appointment, I'm going to have to wait another 9 months. And if I have to wait another 9 months, then what if something is really wrong with me? Well, if something is really wrong with me, then, I'm going to, not be able to go to work. And then I won't be able to provide for my family. And then my family and I are going to die starving in the street homeless.
And if you continue going down that path, an asteroid's going to hit the Earth. And it's the dinosaurs are going to,
because you've lost clarity.
Yeah,
so it nips it in the bud. And I just have made it a habit, Alex. I just go into it instantly. And I'll laugh a lot of times, and I'll say, really, Ryan, aren't you being kind of a drama queen here? And curiosity's based in a high vibration. Sure. Curiosity's based in love.
I have to ask you before we wrap up, this is just, I need to know this, and I love to hear what Spirit has to say.
Okay.
Hollywood.
Yeah.
And, mainstream media and the studios and everything you and I grew up with. I see them. I'm seeing issues. You can see it in the box office returns. You can see it in the subscriptions to all these streaming platforms that they're trying to go. It seems like something is really shifting. Where do you see the Hollywood that you and I, the people who show up on the Oscar night, that Hollywood, the studio system as it is currently right now? Where do you see it in 5 or 10 years? Is it going to survive? And if it is it Blockbuster or is it a version of Netflix?
Oh, it's a version of Netflix. It's shattering back to what we were talking about when we first began this conversation. Yeah. And I have friends that are very high up in the studio system as you do, and there's nothing being made right now.
No.
I mean, the whole movie industry and entertainment industry in Atlanta is shut down. If they're making something, they're going overseas.
Yeah. Or it's Tyler Perry.
They're in. He's even not where he was.
As much. Yeah.
So they're either in Canada, a lot of it's in Ireland, but even that's minimal compared to what it was. So where do I see it going? I think they're trying to figure it out. I think they're in a huge panic right now. They're trying to figure out what's going on. I think you're going to see a lot of emphasis on live things like live sports and things like that. I think that will continue. But I think it's going to go back to the independents like you. You know, you've got the movie background. You have the wherewithal to know what's needed, how it's needed. You can produce something for a fraction of the cost independently. And now we have all of these networks that are happening where it can be distributed and you can bypass a lot of that. So it can be totally different. I think YouTube is a great example of you got a 18-year-old shooting stuff with his phone camera and he has millions of views.
9-year-old.
Okay.
Exactly. And making a cool 400, 500,000 a month.
And the studio guys are going, how do we compete with that?
You can't.
Yeah.
You can't because that game is over. And that's the problem I think that the studios are having is they're still using old techniques, meaning, okay, we're going to spend $200 million on the movie. And I had a conversation the other day with a big producer. They've made easily box office over $1 billion.
Yeah.
And I was talking to her and I go, how much did that movie cost you? She goes, oh, that one's about $35 million. And they're actually on the lower, like they know how to make a movie on a budget.
Yeah.
And it was about $35 million. And I'm like, okay, how long is that movie? So it goes about 90 minutes, 100 minutes. I'm like, okay. So if you put your video, that movie, on YouTube, and I put this conversation on YouTube, this is going to end up being about an hour and 45 minutes. That's going to be about an hour and 45 minutes. This cost me pennies. That cost you $35 million.
Yeah.
Do you see where the problem lies? Yeah. Because whoever's going to watch it, they might be interested in both things. And they might watch both things. But I can produce 3 of these a week, and it's still an hour and a half of their time.
Right.
And you're producing it, and now you're going to wait for another 2 or 3 years to make your next one.
Yeah.
Because the system that made that possible is gone.
It's shattering.
Yeah.
It's crumbling. New things will come out of it, things that we don't know,
Sure.
things that we can't envision. The brain power, and you know this, the brain power in the entertainment industry is vast. There are smart people.
Oh, absolutely.
Smart people, creative people who are going to come up with new ways to entertain people. There's always going to be entertainment, but it's changing. So I think, obviously, you've made the right decision to go on the trajectory where you're being led, and that's how you know you're being led. It's interesting, it's fun, you want to do more of it. That regardless if you're being led to be a plumber or a movie maker or a nurse or whatever. But I think it's going to be really fun and interesting to watch it unfold because it is going to change and something really amazing is going to come out of it. And who knows what it's going to be because we don't have a frame of reference for what's coming.
It's going to be the equivalent of something from 1850 looking at 1905
Right.
or 1910 and looking at Hollywood.
Yeah.
It's that drastic. Like what if the flicker shows, the moving pictures.
Yeah.
Like what is it? It was so different, but that's now gone.
But it opens up the space where you're
something
emptying
else.
the bucket of Kool-Aid so that champagne can come in. And I think it's interesting that you chose Disney, first of all, because he was probably the most brilliant independent ever in the whole entertainment industry. And look at where everything has gone, with him just lighting that spark. And so I think it's going to be interesting to watch it all unfold. And we're still going to have lots of entertainment. There's just lots of different ways to be entertained.
Yeah, my kids, for them to watch a movie is a thing.
Yeah.
They don't. It's not like you and I that grew up with movies and going to the movies and experiencing that. It's not the same anymore. And even now, like, hey, do you want to go to the movies? I'm like, is there anything there we want to watch? Like, it's such minimal amount of things coming out big. Because they can't afford it anymore. Like
Well-
right now, as we're talking, we have Wicked and Gladiator 2 out, and then, Barbie and Oppenheimer last summer and so on and so forth. I remember it was weekly.
Well, you and I have had many conversations about this when we've been together, not recording, but just as friends. And we've talked about, you've said, and I hadn't thought about it until you pointed out, you said there really aren't big movie stars anymore like there used to be.
No.
Like in the golden age of Hollywood. And even when we were growing up, the Schwarzeneggers and the
Tom Cruise.
and those Tom Cruise.
And a lot of people look at, people are like, oh, of course there's still movie stars. I'm like, okay, name one. Well, I like The Rock. He's been around for 30 years. Who else? Leonardo DiCaprio. He's been around since 1995.
Right.
Brad Pitt, also from the 90s. Tom Cruise, also from the 80s.
Right.
These are old legacy movie stars. Who are the new ones? We're like, oh, how about Ryan Gosling or Margot, what's her name?
Kidder.
Barbie. I can't forget her last name.
Isn't it Kidder or something like that?
Like that. I know.
Something, yeah.
It's like two old farts. They don't remember.
But most people won't know who she is, but most people know who those other guys you named.
So let's say Ryan Gosling. He's like the new hot, guy, and he's been around. I'm like, he's also been around since the 90s. But with that said, he's only been like a movie star for the last, but you put him in the wrong movie, it doesn't work. No one goes to see it. You put Tom Cruise in a non-Mission Impossible Top Gun scenario, it's a tough sell.
Right.
You can't, when he does his dramas or something like that, doesn't pull anymore.
Yeah.
Now in the 80s, Tom Cruise could have just been reading the newspaper and it would have opened at 25 million. Arnold, there was a movie called Stop or My Mom Will Shoot by Stallone. Opened at 20 million. It died after that, but it still opened up at 20 million because all they needed to do was show up. And then all these movie stars from the golden age of Hollywood, the Marilyn Monroes, people would just show up purely because that actor was in it.
Right.
Nowadays, it doesn't have the same juice anymore.
Well, the same thing's happening with the publishing industry. I turned down a huge publishing house for my first book, Angelic, Attendants. And they said, I said, what are you guys going to do for me? They said, well, you got to come up with a marketing plan. You got to pay for it. And I said, well, what are you going to do? They said, well, you'll have this big name behind you. I said, nobody buys a book based on who publishes it, ever. Nobody cares.
Nobody watches. People watch Disney movies, but they don't watch Warner Brother movies or Universal movies. Exactly. Disney's brand.
Right. And how brilliant, because he's got a new crowd, every year with new kids being born.
Yeah. Oh no,
and
it was
that
brilliant.
content just keeps going over and over. Yeah. So you're doing it. You're on the right track. And this is where you're being led, because that whole journey that you've encountered so far, that you've been on, the journey that you've been on, you were supposed to learn how to do stuff in the traditional way so that you can springboard off of that and do other things.
Right.
I was supposed to learn how to do medical stuff, medical supplies, to invent and manufacture surgical devices, to go through the university-based research that I had to do in order to be approved by the FDA and all that stuff, so that I understood with the energy healing that I'm doing now a little bit about what's going on. I had to buy an anatomy book when I started doing this woo-woo stuff. I was hearing, okay, it's a gallbladder. All right, I needed to see exactly where it was and exactly what it looked like. And does it emulate what I'm seeing in my head?
Sure.
But that's looking at an anatomy book a few times and you've got it. But we're all led, back to our earlier conversation, we're all led on a trajectory of what our spirit wants to explore and experience in this lifetime. And you're a great example of it.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm so proud of you.
Oh,
as your big sister.
Thanks, big sis. I appreciate it.
I always tell people, we were laughing, I was talking to your wife earlier, I say, when we're together, I say, yeah, he's my little brother. Don't we look a lot alike? People go, yeah, maybe not.
Now, Julie, I'm going to ask you a few questions I ask all my guests.
All right.
You've answered them before, but I always like to re-ask to see if the answers have changed.
Okay.
What is your definition of living a fulfilled life?
Joy. Living a life of joy, being around loved ones and having fun. I think we're here to have fun. Lighten up, Francis. What Spirit told us earlier. Yeah. What is that from, by the way? Is that from a movie?
I don't know.
I think it is.
It might be. Yeah, Lighten Up Francis might be from a movie. I know Bye Felicia is from a movie.
Aloha, Bobby and Rose.
Yeah, there's a couple of those. If anyone ever says Bye Felicia, it's a movie reference.
Yeah. But I hear, Spirit says that to me.
Yeah.
Lighten up, Francis. Tell him to lighten up.
We take this very seriously.
Yeah.
We take this, and you know what? To a certain extent, we kind of have to in order for this thing to work. But there's balance in that.
Well, and it's back to the 2-minute rule.
Sure.
You know, if this is this going to kill me in the next 2 minutes? No, usually not. 99.99999% of the time it won't. So lighten up, Francis.
If you had a chance to go back in time and speak to little Julie, what advice would you give her?
Lighten up, Francis. Have more fun along the way. Don't get caught in the weeds with the details.
Okay.
You know, it's all unfolding perfectly. It always does. Always.
How do you define God or source?
Source. It's the origination of everything. I read an article real fast as an aside that there was a scientist that studied the nucleus of a human cell.
Right.
Have you heard this? Mm-mm. Found a black hole with a vortex in it.
Yeah, because they're going so far down into.
Yeah.
They can see now so far down that they're actually starting to see.
Source.
It's
all source.
Yeah, the head will start.
I know,
to hurt.
but it's all source. Source is God to me. Same thing.
What is love?
Energy. Yeah, we're our spirit. Our spirit's all pure love.
And what is the ultimate purpose of life?
To create and share love.
And where can people find out more about you and the amazing work you're doing in the world?
AskJulieRyan.com. Mm-hmm. All my YouTube channels are Ask Julie Ryan. The podcasts, Ask Julie Ryan. We are releasing 4 shows a week. Mm-hmm. We're on all the podcast networks. My 7th book is coming out next week.
Nice. What's it called?
So it's called Angel Messages for Your Life's Journey.
Okay.
And it's by Julie Ryan and Angelic Storytellers.
Oh, nice.
Is
Very
that good?
Nice. Give them a little credit.
And the book that I'd love to share with everybody is Angelic Attendants, What Really Happens as We Transition from This Life into the Next. Mm-hmm. Anybody that wants a free copy, go to julieryangift.com. Mm-hmm. You can also get it on my website, AskJulieRyan.com. It's on the homepage. Mm-hmm. But go to julieryangift.com and we'll send you a free download of the audiobook and also the digital copy. Please share it with your family and friends. This, I believe, should be taught in the schools. It takes the fear out of death. There are wonderful stories in there that center around families with whom I've worked. Mm-hmm. Miraculous things that I'm not that creative. I can't make this stuff up. Not a chance. And especially, I love, my book came out a year before the university-based research showing everybody sees spirits of deceased loved ones and pets as they're transitioning. Again, 90%. That came out a year later. So I love it when science catches up with woo-woo, because woo-woo's been around a lot longer. And by the way, woo, you know how I always use woo-woo? Yeah. Woo means source.
Does it now?
It does.
So source.
It means source in the Taoist tradition. And the ancient woo is source for everything. So woo is like double source of everything.
You learn something new every day.
That's it.
And do you have any party messages for the audience?
Have fun. We're going into the holidays, and no matter when you're watching this, there's always a holiday coming up. Have fun. Make it fun. Be with family and friends. If you don't have any family nearby, go volunteer at a shelter. Do something that is gonna create joy in your world and joy in the people with whom you encounter. Smile at people when you're in the grocery store. They may be having a tough day, and you smiling at them may be the nicest thing that they encounter. Makes you feel good, makes them feel good. One other thing that I do in the grocery store is I leave money and I hide it on the shelves.
Yeah, I've seen that.
I'll put a $5 bill underneath the can of tomatoes or something
like that, and someone will pick it up.
And it gives me joy to think, I can't wait. It would be so fun to see their face when somebody's like picking up a can of tomatoes and they're like, "There's a $5 bill or a $20 bill."
Or I've seen them stick a little bit of money or gift cards even inside of packages. So there's a whole movement now where people take gift cards and stick them in diapers or formula because it's a new mom.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, so they just and then you open up the formula like. There's a gift card there for $100 or something.
I do that with my grandchildren. If we're in a store, I'll give them $1 bills or $5 bills or something, and it doesn't have to be a lot. You can do it with a dime or a quarter.
Yeah.
And they have so much fun
Hiding
the money, and you just see their faces light up, and then I'll say, now think about how fun that's going to be for the person that finds that. So,
Julie, it's been such a pleasure having you here. It's always a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for not only being here but helping awaken this planet. So I appreciate you.
Oh, my honor. Always a joy to be with you.
Thanks for watching. Click on one of the videos below to continue your journey, and don't forget to subscribe.